the recent announcements by the Ndhlela party leadership, and as well as the purported expulsions. I will now read the media statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, at the outset, we wish all fathers across South Africa, our President, His Excellency, President Jacob Zuma, and all fathers in the Ndhlela party and beyond, happy Father's Day. May this day be filled with reflection, unity, and appreciation for all the roles that fathers play in building strong families and a liberation nation. We address South Africans today in response to reports of our purported expulsion from the MK party. Reports which we first learned through the media despite being long-standing and disciplined members of the organization. From the inception of the MK party, we served the movement with dedication, loyalty, and commitment. And at all material times, we have acted in the best interests of the movement and in accordance with the instructions and mandates given by leadership. On the background and suspension and purported expulsion, in the period leading up to my suspension, there were repeated attempts to isolate me from the president and to undermine mine and his role in the organization. And as the inaugural national spokesperson of the movement, every media briefing and public communication was either approved or undertaken at the instruction of the president. In particular, the media briefing of the 16th of May, 2026, that has subsequently been cited as one of the grounds for my purported disciplinary action, was prepared and conducted with the full knowledge and approval of the president. We have always viewed the president's decisions as sacrosanct and should not be questioned, but respected as such at all times. The actions in question were undertaken on instruction and in the execution of my official responsibilities at the time. Therefore, I also want to state that I stand with the contents of the statement delivered regarding the MK Party Institute, that politics can never overtake the agenda of liberation. Politicians are no longer trusted by the people, and the people are tired of their tendencies of power-mongering, careerism, narrow political agendas, and the like. The people want liberation, and the MK Party Institute was and still is a groundbreaking intervention to advance the liberation agenda. MK Party was built with the sweat and blood of ordinary South Africans and activists who were sick and tired of politicians who continue to bring political tendencies, as we've seen in the former liberation movement. While a political party is a vehicle, liberation is the agenda. And liberation can only totally be recognized if we realize that our sovereignty lies in our melanin. Following my suspension, I was served with lackluster charges, of which I responded to, and to date, I have not received any response thereto. I refer directly to the response communique dated on the 3rd of June 2026, which I robustly challenged, and the validity on the disciplinary process initiated against me. That document highlights fundamental procedural defects, that the Secretary General lacks the unilateral authority to institute such proceedings under the MKP Constitution, and this is specifically as per Section 4 and Section 6 of the MKP Constitution. Disciplinary matters must be handled by the National Disciplinary Committee, and the national prosecutor, and effectively follow strict timelines for complaints, representations, and inquiries. No proper complaint was lodged within 15 days. No referral to the national prosecutor occurred, and the basic principles of fairness were ignored. We then now learned through media reports on live television that we had been expelled from the party because of allegations that we interfered in our friend, Comrade Muzi's funeral. No such happened, as we didn't even participate in the program nor interact with those responsible for the planning of the funeral. We only received a call from Dr. Hlophe stating that he was told to communicate that we shouldn't interfere with the funeral preparations, and this left us baffled, as we stated that we're never party to any planning of the funeral preparations of Comrade Muzi's funeral. Instead, we received, in this case Comrade Dudu received, a call that came through from the head of communications, Mr. Tjera, stating that we needed to find out if the Deputy President had called us, because he had received a call from the national spokesperson, Nhlamulo, to inform us that we should not attend the funeral or the memorial, and that if we were to be attending any of those, we'd be removed violently. Now, we have members of the family, in this case his life partner sitting next to Dudu, who is Ayanda Maseko. We have his sister, Muzi's sister, on the left, and then we have, Dudu, Zuma. But the reason I wanted to highlight it is because the family is going to further expatiate on exactly what transpired. The exploitation of Comrade Muzi's passing. We are deeply disturbed by the attempts to use the strategic passing, or tragic rather passing, of our friend and Comrade Muzi, as a justification for Comrade Dudu and I's purported expulsion. The narrative advanced by certain individuals is both false and offensive. The facts are straightforward. During the period of serious illness, Comrade Muzi personally contacted us seeking assistance. As his friends and comrades, we responded to this request on a phone call that we should assist him and his life partner, Ayanda Maseko, in facilitating a transfer to the medical facility best and better equipped to manage his condition. He was then transferred to Senton Mediclinic. He did so because he trusted us and because he knows we care about his well-being. If we had acted against his interests, one must ask why would he have called us for assistance in the first place? It is particularly troubling that some of those now making those allegations never even visited Muzi in hospital in the first place. It is particularly troubling that some of those now making those allegations never even during his illness, not let's say even at the point of his memorial, attended the funeral service or his memorial service. Yet they seek to weaponize his passing in pursuit of internal political objectives. We reject these allegations with the strongest possible terms and extend our deepest respect for Muzi's family, friends, and comrades who know the truth of what transpired. As Africans, especially leadership of a people's movement like Mkhonto weSizwe Party, we should know better and respect a mourning process of a fellow comrade. The people did not vote for internal conflict. The people voted for economic liberation, land justice, dignity, jobs, civil delivery, transformation. They did not vote for factional battles. They did not vote for internal purges. They voted for liberation, not liquidation. This sets a dangerous precedent. Today it's the founding members. Tomorrow it may be the branch leaders. The next day it may be the councillors, then the ordinary members. If constitutional protections can be ignored for founders of the movement, what protection remains for the ordinary members? This is why this matter affects every single MK member. The MKP was founded on indigenous African legal principles that prioritize cohesion, restorative justice, alternate dispute resolution, and internal processes rooted in umuntu. Umuntu ngabantu. Before any public pronouncements. least of all to the media or perceived enemies of the party. Freedom of expression cannot and should not be stymied in genuine liberation movement. It is the lifeblood of a democratic participation and honest discourse within the organization. It is deeply regrettable that the third largest party in South Africa is represented by a Secretary General who uses such vacuous and procedurally flawed statements in the media, therefore being an act that has brought in itself the party into disrepute and damaging the brand of the party. In effect, we were expelled on unfounded allegations, rumor mongering, and hearsay. Let's also state on record that Comrade Dudu was not removed from Parliament. That's a lie. That is just nothing else but a showboating lie. She resigned on her own volition. This reflects poorly on the party's governance and stability. Instead of making vacuous statements, he and his comrades should be focusing on winning the looming local government elections. A case in point is that there's not even a single poster of MK Party with messaging on elections. But yet, all you see them doing is focusing on purging. Now, there are attempts to hijack the MK Party. The current developments cannot be viewed in isolation. Since the formation of MK Party, there have been several attempts by individuals and factions to capture, manipulate, and ultimately hijack the organization for personal and political gain. As an example, during the 2024 national government elections, serious concerns arose regarding the handling of the party's parliamentary list. Information emerged indicating that processes entrusted to certain leaders had been manipulated and that those names that appeared on those lists were not without proper consultation and authorization by the president. Again, that was an attempt to hijack the party, and in effect, our list was hijacked. When these concerns came to light, interventions were made to protect the integrity of the party and the electoral processes. Among other actions, criminal complaints were opened and urgent corrective measures were pursued. This was not an isolated incident. On numerous occasions, Comrade Dudu, Comrade Muzi, and myself intervened in these situations to protect the party from individuals seeking to exploit the president for their own benefit. We are concerned that similar efforts are now underway in relation to the preparation of the upcoming local government elections. There appears to be an emerging attempt to manipulate the candidate selection process and municipal lists in a manner that excludes the participation of the voice of the ordinary people and the members of the community at large. That includes even attempting to sideline the president and his wishes in terms of how that process should be ensued. It is our considered view that the real reason behind the campaign against us is that we have consistently resisted efforts to undermine the founding vision and integrity of the MK Party. And that is a fact. Much has been said about us allegedly damaging the party. We reject this narrative completely. We have been silent for too long. We will no longer continue to be silent. This has to come to an end. The weaponization of the Nhlamulo and Dudu agenda must come to an end. We believe, and why we believe, the purported expulsions are unlawful. We'll be writing to the Secretary General requesting which sections of the Constitution and which sections of the Constitution were invoked to expel us. Pending that letter of response or not, we will be instructing our lawyers to approach the High Court on an urgent basis to challenge the purported expulsions. The MK Party Constitution and Disciplinary Code establish specific disciplinary structures and procedures that must be followed before any member may lawfully be suspended, disciplined, or expelled. These structures include the National Disciplinary Committee, a National Disciplinary Committee of Appeals, and a national prosecutor. Remember, we never underwent a national disciplinary process, so we can't even appeal something that has not been defined of a procedural outcome, because this has been unprocedural. These safeguards exist to protect members and from arbitrary, selective, or politically motivated action. We are advised and contend that none of these mandatory procedures were followed in our case. No properly constituted disciplinary hearing was convened. No lawful disciplinary inquiry was conducted. No findings were made by any structure empowered by the Constitution to do so. Instead, our alleged expulsions are announced publicly through media briefings. A member cannot lawfully be removed from an organization in this manner. Any decision taken outside of the procedures prescribed by the Constitution is, in our respectful submission, unlawful, invalid, and of no force or effect. We have already placed these objections on record, disputing the authority under which proceedings against us were initiated. Recording, and we've also stated, the conduct and complaint that this conduct cannot be allowed to unfold the way it is. The reservation of our rights. We reserve all our rights, including the right to seek the review and setting aside the purported expulsions and any related decisions arising therefrom. We further reserve the right to institute legal proceedings for defamation and any other appropriate relief in respect to the statements published about us that are false, unsubstantiated, and damaging to our reputations, dignity, and standing. Nothing contained in this statement should be interpreted as a waiver of any rights available to us in the law. In conclusion, we remain committed to the principles of constitutionalism, legality, fairness, and internal democracy. Our dispute is not with the members of Mkhonto Sizwe Party, the president, nor the millions of South Africans who placed their trust in the movement. Our concern is with the actions by these national officials that we believe threaten the integrity of the organization and undermine the constitutional processes that govern it. We approach this matter with confidence in the courts, confidence in the rule of law, and confidence that the truth will ultimately prevail. At this point, and for purposes of clarity, to give a sequence of events in terms of what transpired, because there's things that have been said and purported that we transferred Muzi without authorization, and in effect giving some sort of innuendo that we may have been responsible for his passing. We have requested that Ayanda, who's his life partner for 6 years, that's been living with him, stayed with him, to give the media a sequence of events of what transpired. So I'll allow Ayanda to give us.
Maseko, Zigai's life partner. I have chosen to make this statement to place on record my personal experience of Muzi's illness, the care he received, the events that unfolded through his medical journey. I do so out of respect for Muzi, for the truth, and for the many people who have reached out seeking clarity amidst the conflicting accounts that have emerged. Muzi and I shared 5 years of our lives together. During that time, we built a life together, shared responsibilities, made plans for the future, and stood by one another through both joyful and difficult seasons. When his health began to deteriorate, I remained by his side throughout the journey, supporting him emotionally, physically, and practically as he navigated one of the most challenging periods of his life. From the beginning of his illness, Muzi remained actively involved in his own healthcare decisions. During his first hospitalization, Muzi drove himself to the hospital. He personally completed and signed the necessary admission documentation and made his own decision regarding his health. During that admission, he identified me, Ayanda Maseko, as his point of contact and next of kin. This was his decision, made by him directly, and reflected the role I played in his life and care. As his condition progressed, I continued to be the person most closely involved in his day-to-day well-being, medical appointments, hospital visits, and ongoing care. Throughout this period, our intention was always for Muzi to receive the best possible treatment and medical attention available to him. When his condition later deteriorated to the point where urgent intervention was required, I personally contacted emergency medical services to obtain assistance. Our plan had always been for Muzi to receive treatment at Santon Mediclinic, which we both believed would provide the specialized care he needed. However, when the ambulance arrived, we were informed that due to our operational restrictions and considerations relating to our area of residence, transportation to Mediclinic was not possible at the time. As a result, Muzi was transported to Lenmed Hospital in Lenasia for treatment. These events are not matters of speculation or second-hand information. They are events that I personally experienced alongside Muzi, and in which I was directly involved. The relevant hospital and ambulance records will reflect the admission processes, contacts, and the sequence of events as they occurred. One of the most vivid events that remains clear in my memory occurred during a period when Muzi was undergoing treatment for complications related to his illness. On that particular day, Muzi and I were attending a medical appointment at Netke Krugersdorp, where he was undergoing x-rays in preparation for an abscess drainage procedure. While we were at the facility, I received a call from my grandmother, who was at our place of residence. She informed me that a large group of Muzi's family members had arrived at the house looking for him. I was surprised by this development, as neither Muzi nor I have been informed beforehand that they intended to visit. Concerned by what I have been told, I immediately contacted Muzi and informed him on the situation while he was at the medical facility. After completing his examination, Muzi personally returned their call. During that conversation, he questioned why they had arrived at his residence without first making arrangements with him, and expressed his view that such a visit should have been discussed with him beforehand. He informed them that if they wished to see him, they could make arrangements to return the following day. What stood out to me during this incident was that Muzi spoke for himself, communicated directly with his family, and made his own decisions regarding who he wished to see and when. There was no uncertainty regarding his ability to express his wishes or manage his own personal affairs at the time. To the best of my knowledge and recollection, following that incident, those family members did not return to visit Muzi at our residence during that stage of his illness. It was only later, when his condition became significantly more critical during his hospitalization, that their involvement became more prominent. I include this account because it reflects an important reality that is often omitted from recent narratives. Throughout much of his illness, Muzi remained capable of communicating his wishes, making decisions for himself, and directing matters concerning his personal life and medical care. Another aspect of this journey that remained deeply painful for me relates to the events surrounding Muzi's personal belongings before and after his passing. During Muzi's illness, there were occasions when I was contacted by members of his family regarding possessions that belonged to him and were kept at our shared place of residence. What stood out to me was that these discussions took place while Muzi was still alive and undergoing treatment. At a time when my focus was on supporting him through his illness, during his illness, I had maintained custody of important documents and items belonging to him. At that stage, members of his family did not have possession of any of these items. They only obtained them shortly after his passing. In the days that followed, I made the decision to travel to Cape Town. Muzi had previously entrusted me with the key to his parliamentary residence, and I still had personal belongings of my own at the property. Given the circumstances and concern that my possessions could be mistakenly removed or claimed by others, I felt it was necessary to retrieve my belongings as soon as possible. This was not an easy decision to make while grieving. The emotional weight of losing Mzikayise was overwhelming, yet practical matters still had to be addressed. I did not undertake this journey alone. I was accompanied by Duduzile Zuma, who had been a constant source of support throughout Muzi's illness. From the time Muzi was admitted to St. Mary Clinic, through the many challenges that followed, and until the day he passed away, Dudu stood by us with compassion, loyalty, and unwavering support. Her presence during this difficult period provided strength and comfort when it was most needed. I remain deeply grateful for the kindness, the care, and unconditional support she showed throughout Muzi's journey, and during my own grieving process too. I share these events not to create conflict, but to provide an honest account of experiences during an extraordinarily difficult time. They form part of the broader reality of what occurred during Muzi's illness and after his passing. And they help explain the circumstances that I personally navigated while caring for and mourning for the man I loved. This is one of many experiences that have led me to speak publicly. My intention is not to create division or to diminish anyone's grief. Rather, it is to ensure that Muzi's voice, choices, and lived reality are not forgotten throughout his illness. Muzi constantly demonstrated independence, clarity of thought, and the ability to make decisions concerning his healthcare, relationships, and personal affairs. I believe it is important that these facts remain at the center of any discussion about his journey. As I continue to mourn the loss of the man I loved, shared my life with for 5 years, I remain committed to honoring his memory with honesty, dignity, and respect. I trust that the documented records, the testimony of those who were present, and the truth of what occurred will speak for themselves. My hope is that in the time, the focus returns to celebrating Muzi's life, his strength, the legacy he leaves behind, rather than the disputes that have followed his passing. Thank you.
I'll start with the last question. I don't take any responsibility. I do blame the people around the leadership. And I don't feel betrayed by my father. I, again, blame the people around him. Yeah.
What do you think about the SG?
I thought I could escape that one. Up to date, we have not had great SGs. Thank you.
I'd like to expatiate on the SG matter. You know, as what Dudu is saying, from day one, this party has never had an SG that's capable of actually leading this organization. Fact. And the president should not be blamed for changing SGs. As you can see already, that with this particular one, where it's going. The problem is that when people occupy the role, the first thing that happens is that they become arrogant. They become celebrities. They now want to come in and just change without consultation. They want to abuse their power. And the problem is because, you see, you're dealing with people whose mindset is of that of politics. They don't have a liberation agenda. Mkhonto was founded by activists. And most of those SGs, by the way, were not on the ground. So they don't understand the party. They've never understood the party. And that's why you find so much resistance when it comes to members on the ground. Because they bring tendencies that are foreign to Mkhonto party. If you look at what's transpired to date, every single week, ever since he's arrived, statements regarding people being removed, a statement on Mabatu, now all of a sudden having duty. What is that? You know, every single week, it's now we're becoming a joke. Every single week, we're calling press conferences. You know, it's time for the Teletubbies. Time for Teletubbies. That's what we're becoming. And then we have people also who now we've been told, if I want to respond to that question, on the membership of some of those leaders. You know, it's funny that one of those leaders cited there should know better because he represented President Zuma in a DC regarding membership. So if he's not a member of Mkhonto party, that alone should be telling. I mean, that's the basis of which you actually participate in this party, by taking up membership. So if it turns out that these individuals, in the form of leaders, are not members of Mkhonto party, that's going to be very interesting to see how it turns out. Because now you're going to have non-members having expelled founding members. So on the issue of membership, should that turn out to be true, I think the outcomes are going to be quite dire from the members on the ground. And also, just to touch on the issue of the SG, there's no ways you can lead a movement such as Mkhonto party and still occupy a seat in parliament and still think you're going to fulfill your roles in parliament and then still in the party. It's not going to work. He has to choose one. Which one is it? Because running Mkhonto party is not a celebrity platform like ad hoc committee. This is a movement. We've got looming government elections. Like we said, not even one poster. So there's a number of issues that we are also aware of, which we cannot divulge, because again, we're disciplined members of the Mkhonto party. Based on the charges in the NDC party, so the NDC process is very clear in Mkhonto party. There's section 4 and section 6 specifically. You lay a complaint, or a member can lay a complaint against another, and you cite in the complaint what are those issues that you wish to raise. That goes to the SGO or the SG. The SG, as per the Constitution, is just merely a postman. He takes that complaint, gives it to the national prosecutor, of whom the national prosecutor contacts as the accused. Within 48 hours, that person who's accused is then requested to respond as to why they should not be charged. And then that makes a determination as to should that be a culmination of charges against you, which will then go through a DC process. You then obviously make your own representations, and based on the outcome thereof, you're sanctioned accordingly based on the offenses in Section 3 of the Constitution. But like I said, we have incompetent leaders here. They don't even understand their own constitution. They break their own constitution. They refer to the Constitution. They talk about being organization and being following the Constitution. But yet they break the same Constitution. They flout the Constitution because they don't read. So there's an issue of competence here. So that's the issue of them. Did we go through any of that? No, we didn't go through that process. Instead, we were expelled Hollywood style. I sent the SG a letter responding to the so-called charges. And by the way, in those charges, the craziest thing, to show you how obsessed they are and vindictive they are, they go and they put Dudu's tweet as part of my charges. How is that possible? At what point? Where do I enter? How can you charge me for Dudu's tweet? So it shows you that these individuals were looking for anything and everything possible to deal with us. And disgustingly so, as despicable characters, they then go in news and politicize our friends' death and weaponize that to expel us. What kind of leadership is that? And then you want to say you lead an organization that represents Ubuntu. Today, this man, in the form of our friend, Muzi, it's Father's Day. He's not around. But these individuals are sitting with their children. And yet they were comfortable enough to use his death to politicize and weaponize it to their own end game, which is to expel us. You can see they've got no grounds. So they wanted anything to hold on to. Do we agree that the president agreed to the moves? The president is a very wise man. The president is a liberator. The president divorced from politics a long time ago. He's an activist at heart. When the president, by the way, took over as president of the ANC, he took over a former liberation movement. And what you can see is when he started to want to implement policies that were radical, to take it back to its liberation days, implementing revolutionary policies, they stopped him. And the reason the former liberation movement is the former liberation movement today is because of politics. They abandoned the agenda of liberation. His predecessor, President Zuma's predecessor, was leading a liberation movement. But President Zuma took over a political party. He formed MK Party precisely because he did not want politicians to drive politics over the 90% agenda of liberation. That's why MK Party was formed by activists, by South Africans. Now we have tendencies of politicians, the 10% who are vibrating at politics. We are not at politics, we are at liberation, the 90%, the liberation agenda. And there you will find activists. So what you're seeing is tendencies of people politicizing, careerism, power mongering. That's what you're seeing here. President can see through all of that. And President, being the wise man that he is, he allows you to follow your own sword. Let's see what happens in the weeks to come. That will be telling, and I think it will then respond and answer to that question. So like we said, the president's decisions we respect, they are sacrosanct. And one thing I also need to state categorically is that I was already on my way out. Dudu knows, a lot of people know. in the organization. I was planning to resign as Mkhonto Wesizwe Party spokesperson. Funny enough, even that week. So I have no hard feelings. I am not a position monger. I'm not here for positions, like what you find with most of these these leaders who believe that, their positions, they were built for those positions. I'm not there. I'm not interested in positions. I came and I was selfless because the spokesperson role is selfless. I was the inaugural spokesperson for this organization during the toughest times, during the time when it was not fashionable, and I upheld the president's vision. So I can't be told today by politicians who want to come and politic about my contributions to the party. No. I mean, who are you? Where were you? Where were you when we were on the ground? Where were you when Muzi and I used to sleep in a car? Where were you? So we can't be told by our rivalists that we must abandon this party. I mean, us not fighting this would be tantamount to giving birth to a child and leaving them in the wilderness for scavengers to devour. I'm not going to allow that. It's not going to happen. You can say whatever you want to say about Duduzile and Nhlamulo. If it means we must be around the president to protect certain activities that aim to hijack his agenda, which are politicians, we will ensure that that does not happen. And if you think that that is because we are trying to powermonger or whatever, that's your problem. And I can tell you, at the time at which the same Duduzile that you see here had moved away from the president, had been isolated from the president, you could already see that this party was not the same. Fact. So then I think it's important to highlight. I don't think there's anything else. There's a question there.
The issue and how was he actually the one that reached the decision to expel the both of you? And to you, Nhlamulo, who do you think is behind the action of both of you at Mkhonto Wesizwe? Thank you.
Sanibonani, igama uqondile kwaDlodloyi from Dlodloyi Media. Eyamembuzo mbili nje lula kakhulu. Bengicela ukubuza ke ku Commander uNhlamulo ukuthi njengoba Mkhonto Wesizwe wenza kahle ku 2024 KZN yawina yaba number 1, Impumalanga bamba number 2. Mawubuka ngendlela kwenza ngakhona izinto manje usengaqoqozela yini ukuthi umuntu avotele Mkhonto Wesizwe? And Mkhonto Wesizwe usaseliqembu elilungele ukukhulula umuntu omnyama. Umbuzo wokugcina uthi mawubuka i-National High Command ingabi nayo i-capacity yokuhola lo mkhumbi omkhulu kangaka oMkhonto Wesizwe?
The National High Command? What do you say?
They still National High Command, they have a capacity to lead this big party.
No, thank you. Sorry, I just forgot this. Duduzile, I understand that you're the signature of MK Party in Parliament and in IEC. Have they approached you to remove your name? If they have, will you be removing it? What does this actually mean? Does it mean that we can still continue to say who must go to Parliament and who must not go to Parliament? And also, on the removal of Mabatu, do you guys feel that I know that she's viewed mostly aligned to you. Do you feel that her removal was also a bit questionable? Thank you.
Why answer that question? Your last one.
Thank you very much.
Is Mohan again from Sunday World. There is a question that I asked at the press conference of the MK, I think it was on Thursday, on the issue of Hillcrest. Unfortunately, I couldn't get any response from that. I just need to find out from you, dude. Maybe if you can explain to us what is really happening at Hillcrest. Who are those people at Hillcrest? Who is discussing you? And what was the purpose and all that, you know? Because I couldn't get an answer there. Maybe since you are here, you can explain to us what is really happening in Hillcrest, and then what is the agenda about you and other people within MK. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's Vikanyo, MDN TV. My first question is in connection with your expulsion. Does it exposes a deeper faction within the MK? And my last question is in relation to the next local government election. Will voters have confidence in the MK, especially what is going on now? Thank you.
Angibingelele okhulumayo uSiphiwe from one of our TikTokers umkhondo wesizwe. Bengicela ukubuza ukuthi kule media briefing ebesinayo Nhlamulo and Dudu ukumuva umuzi ebe under umshini or bengekho emshinini, because what I know uma uzomuva umuntu esibhedlela umhambisa kwesinye isibhedlela uma under umshini kufanele asebenzise i-ambulance enomshini. Thank you.
Thank you, Hawelo Magoleo from UFM. Are you able to give an indication whether you'll be seeking political refuge elsewhere? EFF, I've seen the flirting online with Juju, EFF, Maibuye, or any of them, or even launching your own. Thank you.
Wish him a happy Father's Day. You were late. We did actually start with that, but President Zuma, what's the time now? I don't think he's like his day hasn't really started yet, so we'll catch him a bit later on the phone. And I had a sit down with him? No, we haven't had a sit down yet. I'm scheduled to be with him from next week, so we'll probably have a discussion about it then. When it comes to the signatories in Parliament and IEC, I think this is when we start asking the question, where were you? Because at the initial stages of MK, we ran into a lot of problems like Jabulani Khumalo. So there were many things that were done, many decisions that needed to be taken that the people that weren't there have no idea of. And one thing that we've always done is whoever comes in, we always openly say, we've been here, ask us what you need, we're willing to give you all the information that you have. If they had come to us with information on why I held all these positions is, when we first got to Parliament, it was myself and Comrade Sihle at the time, we were the signatories there. They were not there, they couldn't be, it's impossible. And when it comes to IEC, this is when we were fighting Jabulani Khumalo, and at that time it was the NIC, which was the National Interim Corps, took the decision in a meeting in our Hyde Park headquarters at that time, which was my house. And I remember the NTG, which was Lepang, Sihle was also there, Comrade Sihle. They suggested my name. I did not. Can I carry on? Well, I'll just speak loud. So yeah. Carry on. I can just speak loud.
Oh, that's good.
Hello. Okay. Yeah, so in that meeting with the National Interim Corps, the decision was taken there. We signed the papers there. I remember present, being above, over my shoulder. Even Jabulani Kumalo was in that meeting. So it's not that I woke up and secretly went to do all these things. Not at all. They must come and ask, because where were you? With regards to Hillcrest, I think all I'll say on that is, I'm trying to remember the comrades' names. Comrade Tony Yengeni, Comrade Datin Tleko, Comrade Brian Molefe, Comrade Nomvalo, the SG. They might be able to tell us a little bit more about that, because I think that's even where the finance policy was done. Maybe when you find them, you can ask them. Thank you.
I think on the question of, is there a concerted effort to remove us and who those individuals are, you've just heard the response. I'll get Ayanda to answer on the moving of Muzi. Political refuge, no. Like we said, there's no ways we'll be part and parcel of giving birth to a baby and then leaving that baby out there in the wilderness with scavengers to devour. It's not going to happen. So we are staying with the Mkhonto Wesizwe party. As far as we're concerned, even now, we are members of Mkhonto Wesizwe. Now, here. Especially in light of the fact that it could be that we were expelled by non-members. Imagine that. I rather this were non-members expelling founding members. Oxymoron. On the issue of the National High Command, I think one of the things that we've always said about the National High Command, and Duduzile just touched on it. You see, this is what institutional memory does, is that we had the National Interim Leadership Corps, which in effect was our NEC, if you want to put it that way, today called National High Command. The National High Command, we have a lot of capable cadres there. But what was interesting is that the former SG, who went and formed his own political party, handpicked some of those. And funny enough, what then happened is that when he exited, there was an exodus of most of them with him. So we still have capable, very capable comrades in the National High Command. It has always been the President's view that it must be constituted as the National Executive Committee. And what needs to happen, which is what thing that's also lacking, besides all the capable comrades that are in the National High Command, we need to bring back the members of Mkhonto Wesizwe National Interim Leadership Corps that were there with us from day one. Because most of them are not, there's only one that I've seen, I think, who was represented. It's not to say that those members of the National High Command were not there, but I'm saying in terms of the National Interim Leadership Corps, those that were there are not represented. Most of the comrades that you see still in the National High Command are those that played very important roles at the provincial level. So, do we believe that the National High Command is capable? Absolutely. Remember, part of what has happened is that they've not allowed the National High Command certain SGs that way to sit. And that has crippled the organization. Here's another thing. If you look at the Constitution, the day-to-day operations of the SGO and the officials has to be by resolution of the National High Command. So what we need to start asking ourselves is, the decisions that they are taking, are they taking decisions based on a resolution and outcomes of a National High Command meeting? Because the day-to-day powers, they cannot just use, pull them from the sky. Those day-to-day powers for the operations, it says in the Constitution, it's very clear, must come from the National High Command. So we also want to ask the national officials to give us a resolution that they've received from the National High Command, because they cannot obviously receive that without the National High Command sitting. So maybe the sooner they get the National High Command to sit, the better. And then it brings a question to some of the decisions that they've taken as to whether they're actually constitutional or not. So there's then technicality that we also need to look at. But again, they don't read. So we're saying that the National High Command, yes, is definitely capable. What was the other question? expulsion doesn't mean there's something deeper. I think Dudu's just answered. She's just answered that with the question on Hillcrest. Do we believe we will do well come local government elections? Mkhonto Sizwe Party is the fastest growing political party in the country. But due to the politics wanting to overtake the liberation agenda, because activists are now being purged, the activists are going to respond. There's one thing I can tell you. Mkhonto Sizwe members on the ground are fearless. They don't have time for celebrities. They don't have time for individuals who want to come and bring politics here. It's not going to happen. Are we going to do well? Yes, we will do well. But we need a Treasurer General also who must focus on fundraising and not just focus on monies that we get from the IEC. That's a problem. That's why even in the statement where we announced the institute, we said the TG role must actually be a fundraiser. Because you cannot fund a revolution based on monies from the IEC. Forget it. It's not going to happen. If you need resources to advance the liberation agenda, you need to institutionalize your organization to that being in the form of an institute. Not a political party in its current form. No, it's not going to happen. Otherwise, you're perpetuating the same problem. Funders fund institutions. International funders will fund institutions to a liberation agenda because they know that this institution is an institution that has a specific ideology of liberation that they can form part of. So, when it comes to that's really our stance to say we will do well as Mkhonto Sizwe Party. We are quite confident that the sooner there's a mass exodus at officials level and the right SG is appointed, the better. This must also look at the Department of Finance, replacing that one too, the better. Yes. Just bring Ayanda to respond on the moving of Muzi.
Muzi was not on any machines when he was being moved, and his father was also present and other family members as we were being escorted to the ambulance heading to Santon Mediclinic. So the family was fully aware of this move, and the medical staff at Landmed can attest to that. And we also have medical records that Muzi was not on any machine when he was moved. Thank you.